Previously, in the Xanathar's lair,
More wine.
the party had
More
confronted, or been confronted by, the titular leader of the guild. A fearsome battle had ensued, one that left the Xanathar's audience chamber covered in corpses, the party covered in wounds, and the beholder reeling. The last few moments of the battle unfolded with the perfect blend of luck and strategy for the party. As the Xanathar vanished in an attempt to flee, Ashes attacked Ezrah, managing to break the charm effect on the sorcerer. Matashtai managed to overcome his paralysis, and Bones rushed over to the monk, pulling forth his lantern of revealing to find the Xanathar floating almost right above them. Suddenly revealed, the Xanathar instinctively focused his central eye upon Bones and Matashtai, the figures that had revealed him. Now struggling for survival once more, the beholder fired off rays at Ezrah and Ashes. Ezrah, with Ash's assistance, just barely dodged out of the way of a death ray that would have undoubtedly taken his life. Matashtai, unparalyzed, fired still more arrows into the creature and then was promptly paralyzed once more. Ashes, hearing reinforcements coming from the east, wedged his war pick into the door to stall for time, and then Ezrah, no longer charmed but now slowed, unleashed his gathered power upon the beholder, sending it crashing down in front of Bones and Matashtai, dead. There was no time to celebrate victory. From under Bones and Matashtai's feet came a pounding as reinforcements attempted to enter from below but were unable to. Ashes ended up pushing the Xanathar onto the trapdoor in order to further block it, and Bones began harvesting rings and eye stalks from the beast. While the party gathered to escape somewhat difficult task because of Ezra's slow still upon him and Matashtai paralyzed, more Xanathar agents began to arrive from the unblocked entrance to the west, but they were taken aback by the sight of the felled beholder. Gave them pause, but more reinforcements were arriving by the second, and that pause would not last for long. The party, not believing that they could stand against so many reinforcements, decided to flee. Ezrah cast greater invisibility upon Bones and Matashtai, entrusting that they would be able to find their way out of the lair. Upon seeing the two of the party disappear, the western reinforcements became emboldened and began rushing into the room. At the same time, the party began to hear shouts, fighting coming from beyond the eastern door, the one that had been blocked by Ashes. Shouts of the Lord's Alliance. But whatever it was too late now. The plan for escape was already in motion. Ezrah took Ashes by the hand and stepped through a dimensional door to escape.
Sort of.
Only the magic went awry, and arcane force slammed into the sorcerer and the blood hunter, wounding them greatly. The spell had failed. Fortunately, despite the pain, Ezrah was able to maintain his concentration on the invisibility, and Bones, after removing the war pick, opened the path east to see a mass of Kuatoa and Lord Alliance members fighting. Using his last fireball, Bones decimated the Kuatoa, warned the Lord's Alliance that they were fleeing, and began to do just that. But Matashtai, having witnessed Ezra's dimensional door fail, sprinted back to the sorcerer and the Lycan, healing them, preparing to defend them against the oncoming swarm of Xanathar agents. Matashtai didn't realize that the greater threat at that exact moment was the werewolf himself. Pushed past his limits, Ashes lost control and lunged at Ezrah, ripping into the already wounded mage. If it were not for Matashtai's timely healing a moment before, the enraged lycanthrope would have left Ezrah a bloody mess on the floor of the Xanathar's audience chamber. In that next moment, Ezrah, still reeling, still seeing no other opportunity to escape, grabbed Ashes and successfully dimension doored out of the Xanathar's lair. Matashtai and Bones, now alone but invisible, were able to escape as the Lord's Alliance cut down the remaining Kuatoa. Before fleeing the area, the monk and the rogue witnessed the Alliance members disappear in a cloud of smoke, but they were unsure whether this meant that Halaster Silvermane and his crew were escaping or seeking to press further into the dungeon. As Matashtai and Bones escaped from the guild's not-so-secret at this point lair, Ezrah found himself alone in a tunnel with Ashes. If the Lycan could not control himself, red-filled Ashes' eyes, he heard Zalara's voice call out in his mind. The momentary distraction was all he needed to regain control. The rage fell away, and Ashes shifted out of his Lycan form. The two wounded comrades awaited their allies. Eventually reuniting, the party limped their way back to the Legion's territory. The Legionnaires had set up triage centers and command posts throughout the Stromkolder ruins, and the party was able to witness the almost brutal efficiency with which the Legion worked. They met with Rolvuk in Azrok's hold and found that many of the attacks had been victories, but that there had been no word of Azrok's attack on Skull Isle. Bones decided to wait to share news of the victory over the Xanathar until after Azrok had returned. While the party rested and tended their wounds, Bones decided to tour the hold, attempting to boost morale by showing his presence, the clear implication being that if he was there, with his head held high, then the Xanathar had fallen. Hours passed awaiting for news of Azrok, and finally, near midnight, the trumpets sounded. Victorious return. The streets of Stromkolder were packed, but the crowds parted to let the victorious arrivals through. Then came the sad realization that very few had returned. A wounded Azrok and Lurkana, the Preta Kripa, and a mere handful of legionnaires. The slow parade eventually made its way to Azrok's feast hall, to his throne, where Azrok addressed the gathered crowds, the party first and foremost amongst them. Azrok gave impassioned words to his legionnaires, claiming victory at Skull Isle, honoring the fallen and assuaging the fears of the gathered by telling them that so few returned from Skull Isle because they had needed to leave behind such a large garrison. He then asked Bones to speak, and Bones, pulling out the eye stalks he had claimed from the Xanathar, proclaimed victory over the guild. Azrok stood victorious. The party stood victorious. The Legion stood victorious. Celebrations lasted through the night, with the many tales being told, tales of valor and bravery, victory and defeat, of the living and of those that had fallen. The party got to see an uncharacteristic release amongst the legionnaires, a wild side removed from their typical stoic discipline. The Legion reveled, and the Legion mourned. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.